So, folks, there is this guy named Larry David. And wait a minute. I don't know where that sound came from. But anyway, there's this guy named Larry David. And he wrote an op-ed in the New York Times titled "My Dinner with Hitler," making fun of Bill Maher, who had dinner with Donald Trump and talked about it. And it's a pretty good piece of making fun of Bill Maher. And frankly, I think more people should do that because Bill Maher is a smarmy asshole and not funny at all. Like, he's just kind of a creep. And, you know, I didn't talk about it on the show because, like, I think it stands by itself. You know, I don't talk that much about, like, Larry David, etc. But someone else talked about it, and I feel compelled to talk about their response. And I think it's honestly shocking. Okay? And here we go. Strap in, folks.
Comedian on comedian violence over a dinner with Donald Trump. Larry David is using his pen to point out what he sees as Bill Maher's misguided meal with the president and his even more misguided monologue to defend that dinner. Here I was, prepared to meet Hitler, the one I'd seen and heard, the public Hitler. But this private Hitler was a completely different animal.
Larry David, the creator of Curb Your Enthusiasm, is not enthused about the fact that comedian Bill Maher decided to have a sit-down conversation, a private conversation with President Donald Trump. Now, Bill Maher has been highly critical of Trump. He has not been a friendly broadcaster toward Trump, but nonetheless, just yesterday, Larry David published a parody of Maher in the New York Times titled "Larry David, My Dinner with Adolf."
Sorry, my dinner with Adolf.
He's drawing parallels between Trump and Adolf Hitler, obviously here. And to understand what David is getting at,
did we really need to point that out? Like, did we really need to double down and point out that, like, that was the parallel being drawn? Because, like, we know.
Actually discuss how Maher's dinner went, or more importantly, how Maher described his dinner with Donald Trump on his HBO show Real Time with Bill Maher. So he said, quote, "I never felt I had to walk on eggshells around Trump. And honestly, I voted for Clinton and Obama, but I would never feel comfortable talking to them. The way I was able to talk with Donald Trump, that's just how it went down. Make it what you will. It's emblematic of why Democrats are so unpopular these days." He continues, "There were so many moments when I hit him with a joke or contradicted something, and no problem. At dinner, he was asking me about the nuclear situation in Iran. That's definitely concerning. In a very genuine, hey, I think you're a smart guy. I want your opinion sort of way. And I said, well, obviously, you're privy to things about it, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm gonna stop. I do not want Trump to take advice from Bill Maher on anything pertaining to the Middle East, but let me continue.
Yeah, also, again, Bill Maher's defending this, right? Like, Bill Maher is saying, this is a good idea. That it was great that I went. He was so kind to me. And to do that when, like, literally this past week, Donald Trump, like, kidnapped children that are US citizens and sent them abroad, effectively exiling them. And, like, it's so tone deaf to try and frame this as like, but he's just so personable. Like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing?
But for what it's worth, I thought the Obama deal was worth letting play out because we made Iran destroy 98% of the uranium, and they were 15 years away from a bomb. And then I said to him, but we got rid of that. You got rid of that. He didn't get mad or call me a left-wing lunatic. He took it in. Finally, he says, you can hate me for it, but I'm not a liar. Trump was gracious and measured. And why he isn't that in other settings, I don't know and I can't answer. And it's not my place to answer. I'm just telling you what I saw and I wasn't high. So
can I just say I doubt that very much? Like, just from what I've seen of Bill Maher, like Bill Maher records his show like high as a kite every single day while also drinking. Like, he's crossfaded as fuck on his podcasts and shows. And also, again, you can't say that he's gracious and measured when he's asking you, a comedian, on advice on how to deal with a nuclear conflict. That's not either gracious or measured, actually.
before we get to Larry David's, parody response to all of this, Jenk, what are your thoughts on Bill Maher's take here?
Yeah, no, I agree with Bill Maher. I think you should go to meet with him, and I'm glad that he put in a vote for, getting back into the Iran nuclear.
There's no getting back into the Iran nuclear deal. Like I'm sorry, you can't treat this like that's an option. That got ripped up like 8 years ago, man. There's that deal isn't on the table anymore. God damn it. But also, hey, just throwing this out there, like, maybe you as a comedian don't go and have a dinner with Donald Trump. Or if you do, you should leave that dinner with him being mad as hell. Like, you should piss him off. If you aren't pissing off the fascist you've been invited to dinner with, like, what are you? What good are you as a comedian? You know? God.
Clear deal that Obama had and not going to war. So obviously Bill Maher and we disagree a lot on Israel, but apparently we
also Bill Maher is a disgusting conservative pig, which is true. That's true. And I don't believe that he'd have a good effect on Donald Trump anyway. I think like the most probably best outcome here is for Bill Maher to just not go, but
we agree on that. And since Donald Trump cares a lot about what people on TV think, that's not just one vote, that's a lot of votes in Donald Trump's mind against war. So I'm glad that Bill did that. I thought Larry David's op-ed was really clever, funny, effective, and I totally disagree with it.
It was this comedian did something really funny, but I have to shake my head. I have to disapprove of it.
You disagree with it? Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's actually not that interesting. I totally suspected that would be your take. So look, Larry David, not a fan of that monologue from Bill Maher or his willingness to go speak with Donald Trump. So let me give you a few excerpts from the op-ed, the parody op-ed that he wrote in the New York Times. He says, I had just been a vocal critic of Hitler's on the radio from the beginning, but eventually I concluded that hate gets us nowhere. I knew I couldn't change his views, but we need to talk about the other side, even if it has invaded and annexed other countries and committed unspeakable crimes against humanity.
I do love this particular clip, right? Specifically because you have the quoting of Larry David back to Jenk, almost like a direct response to what Jenk just said, which is funny as hell. Yeah, we need to find middle ground with the other side, even if it's done horrific war crimes.
I mean, Barack Obama literally assassinated an American citizen in the Middle East. he was a suspected terrorist, but American citizens are supposed to, by the way, everyone is supposed to get due process. In this,
I know, I'm trying not to overuse it, but like, there are a bunch of awkward silences in here, and in my head, I'm filling them with just constantly.
this case, I mean, we're talking about an American citizen that was assassinated, and then his son was assassinated after that. So, look, I understand where Larry David is coming from because Trump does not have a.
Can we also just point out that maybe, like, while assassinating an American citizen is indeed bad, Trump also did that. Trump in his first term also did that to a guy who was suspected of violence at a BLM protest. He sent feds specifically to kill that man on American soil, and now this time he has a concentration camp in El Salvador. Like, you know, like, we can do the whataboutism, but like, it doesn't go well. And yeah, Obama was wrong then too.
Spotless record at all. But at the same time, I just find it so interesting how all these big public figures.
Yes, I'm aware that Larry David's article about having dinner with Adolf Hitler is not a factual telling of events.
Especially entertainers seem to think that the Democratic Party is squeaky clean, when in a lot of cases they have carried out atrocities of their own. You know,
can we just? And there's a reason why I wanted to do this full clip. I know that the Majority Report did just like a great takedown of this, but you guys should go watch that because it's very worth watching on your own. But I wanted to go through this entire thing bit by bit here because, like, you know, you can criticize more than one group of people. You know, like, comedians, by the way, aren't like a monolith. You know, there's not just a hive mind comedian, but also you can both criticize Donald Trump and criticize the Democrats. You can do both, actually. Kind of like how you can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time, or pat your head and rub your tummy at the same time, or deny due process to 200 undocumented immigrants and send them to a concentration camp at the same time. You know, that's kind of how you can do all those things. You know, you can do multiple things at once. It's crazy.
In Democratic administrations, but since they smile and they come across as professorial and professional, they're the good guys. Whereas Trump, yes, I get it. The way he speaks is grotesque at times. He doesn't hide what he actually thinks.
Wait, the issue with Trump isn't the way he speaks. The issue with Trump isn't like that he just says the quiet part out loud. The issue with Trump is his policy that immiserates hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, while stripping all of us collectively of our constitutional rights. This is not like, oh, he's bad because he's in a mean-looking package.
And just says it like it is. And that honestly offends the sensibilities of a lot of people. But that's not to say that he, in some ways, he is worse, right? But I have a problem with like the whitewashing of the, you know, crimes against humanity that were committed by the other side of the political aisle.
Yeah, but you realize that has nothing to do with Larry David, right? Larry David isn't whitewashing the crimes of past Democratic presidents. Like, that's, you again, there's not a hive mind of leftist comedians doing that. This is like an imagined slight by culture as a whole, I guess. Maybe, if I'm being the most charitable.
As well.
Yeah. So on the surface, there's a lot to agree with Larry David on. So when you, or should you be concerned about Donald Trump's authoritarian tendency?
Yes, Ana is indeed doing whataboutism. Exactly.
Definitely. So that is not an illegitimate concern at all. He's talking about serving a third term that's obviously unconstitutional. They're talking about suspending habeas corpus and due process. That's the cornerstones of Western civilization.
They have a concentration camp in El Salvador for immigrants, some of whom were here legally. But how dare Larry David write an op-ed that compares Donald Trump to a fascist dictator? How dare Larry David commit such an atrocity in writing in the pages of the New York Times?
Not listening to the courts. If he does this consistently, and for example, he is not yet at the point where he is saying, "I will never listen to the courts," but he's getting.
Yeah, because everyone knows that what Hitler did or what fascists do. Hey guys, do fascists just come right out and say, "I don't believe in laws, actually. In fact, I don't believe in laws, I am the law"? No, they don't. They try and say, the courts have abdicated their duty, and therefore I, the authoritarian dictator, must step in to fix that. They claim the authority of law, at first on a temporary basis, and then for longer and longer as time goes on. And again, expecting someone who wants to be or is in the process of trying to be an authoritarian dictator to come out and say, "Hey everybody, I'm an authoritarian dictator and I love fascism." That doesn't happen. That never happens.
There, and if he gets there, we've lost the country. We've lost democracy.
No, I'm going to go further than you, Jenk. No. He is not listening to literally the highest court of the land, the United States Supreme Court. So that is a huge problem.
Ding, ding, ding. That is a huge problem. Now, Donald Trump, I've been paying attention to what's been going on in the courts. And the Trump administration, at least nominally as a whole, is still trying to say, we're adhering to the letter of the law, if not the spirit of it, essentially, if you boil it down. And that's only going to go so far. Like, I believe by like the end of this week and into like next week, we're going to start seeing some additional turnaround from some of these cases, like, for example, about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The constitutional crisis is still escalating for sure, but we aren't at the Judge Dredd, "I am the law and I want to do a fascism" as he looks into the camera and winks. Like, we're not there.
And I'm not in any way trying to cover up, the bad behavior and unconstitutional, behavior that Trump is engaging in. He did not listen to the United States Supreme Court, which told him, "You need to bring this individual back from El Salvador, who you basically illegally deported. You didn't give him due process." So it's bad.
So it's almost as bad as it could be. But why do I say almost? Because I'm trying to be accurate and correct here. So why do I think that the Rubicon has not been completely crossed? Because the Supreme Court ordered the case to go back to the district court and work its way back up on how to bring him back. So we're not at the end of the road yet. But once it goes back up to the Supreme Court, the court is going to give a definitive ruling. And if he ignores it at that point, that's it. We crossed the Rubicon. We're in a constitutional crisis. And
the crisis is already here. Like, the final Rubicon is simply like when we're talking about like it goes up to the Supreme Court again and then they say no, like that's truly like, oh, okay, it's knockdown drag out time.
He's on his way to authoritarianism, right? So, and he's on that road now and he's testing things. So why do I
look? Julius Caesar is only like a quarter of an inch away from crossing the Rubicon. He might still turn back.
Disagree with Larry David, especially because it's such a clever way of putting it in the op-ed. Well, because he's assuming that Trump is already Hitler and we have already arrived at that end conclusion.
No, it's when people compare things, Jenk, they're not necessarily saying this thing is 100% the same. Like when someone compares, for example, an apple and an orange, they aren't saying that oranges are apples or apples are oranges. They are talking about how they share similarities. Wait, what the fuck is the Rubicon? The Rubicon is a small river in Italy.
And Bill Maher is playing patty cakes with him anyway, right? No, I would argue that Bill is going, and remember guys, I'm a guy who's criticized Bill Maher ferociously. So if I have any bias.
And to elaborate just slightly more, it's a small river in Italy, and basically Julius Caesar's armies were ordered to stay north of the Rubicon. And when he crossed the Rubicon, he was disobeying the democratic rule in Italy, in Rome. And that's when he became the dictator. Crossing the Rubicon is kind of the point of no return. Hope that clears it up.
Is against Bill Maher, but I think he did the right thing here because he's trying to prevent, to the best of his ability. He's just one guy, right? But at least he's trying. He's trying to prevent those ends. If we had already gotten to those ends, then yeah, who gives a damn if Hitler cracks a joke, right? And so, but how is Bill helping to do that? Well, in this analogy, Trump has not crossed over to the Sudetenland yet, which I would argue is attacking Iran. And Bill is telling him, don't attack Iran. And so, will I take that? Yes, yes.
I love that Jenk is just framing this as if the only reason Donald Trump hasn't started a war with Iran is because Bill Maher intervened, and that was absolutely not the subtext of that story.
I will definitely take that as opposed to other people in the room telling him to attack Iran and no counter voice. So I love that Bill Maher went there, and I'm actually surprised at his opinion on that, but very pleasantly surprised. And so that's great. That's why, by the way, you never shut down speech because you never know who's going.
Yeah, Bill Maher, national hero, single-handedly stopping war with Iran. Who knew? He should get the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
To help at what time? You know, we're all human beings with a real interesting variety of opinions here. And so lastly, in terms of why
historically, you can't be a fascist unless you're doing like exactly what Hitler did, apparently, according to Jenk.
I think it could help is, look, Larry David makes fun of Bill Maher in that, oh, he thought Trump was funny and more open to him than the Democrats. Ha ha ha, because Trump is Hitler. But wait a minute, that's not what Maher is saying.
Oh boy.
Maher is saying Democratic officials in government, not just officials, but candidates and politicians would be better served to be as personable as Trump is, because even though Trump does all these terrible things that we call out, that Bill Maher calls out, he wins elections by being personable.
No, he doesn't. He's not. He's not whining and dining his constituents like he was Bill Maher. What are you talking about? These are two different skill sets.
He's trying to give helpful advice to the Democrats, so hey, that you might be able to beat guys like Donald Trump.
Not allowed.
But if you,
in what way is it helpful, man? In what way? Are you kidding? Why are they kissing ass like that? Honestly, the most compelling reason I've heard is that they want to maybe go on Bill Maher's show. But like, I don't know. Like it's bizarre to hear them talk like this. Like as if we've never seen Trump rallies. Yeah, he was so personable on January 6th. He was so kind and thoughtful. At all of his rallies where he told his constituents to beat people up.
You do anything that is open-minded in any way, shape, or form, or try to influence the Trump administration or the right wing in any form, there are folks like Larry David who I really respect.
Hey, just real quick, how you influence the right wing? You take up a strong position in favor of something that benefits everyone in society, a universal program, universal health insurance, universal pre-K. universal school lunch, universal school breakfast, programs that actually help working people in this country. That's how you that's how you get Republicans over to your position. You radicalize them into not being Republicans anymore. You don't just I don't know, whisper sweet nothings in their ear and give them a free hand job.
That's why he called that op-ed "My Dinner with the Very Personable Man Who Knows How to Win Elections and Cares About This Country."
Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. And absolutely true, And then you say they can't have that thing because of X protected characteristic? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever, man. No, you have universal programs that are not means tested. Means testing is the death of universality.
Otherwise, who say, nope, that's it, you're helping Hitler, and that's anyone talking to the right wing ever is helping Hitler, and that is super.
Nah, man, the reason he's compared to Hitler frequently is because he does shit that Hitler did. It's because he's a fascist. It's because he shares commonality with fascists. That's it. Full stop. If you have any awareness of history, you know that that's why the comparisons are being made. Don't play dumb.
Counterproductive, not at all helpful, and ironically will lead to the end that Larry David's worried about in the first place.
And finally, I just want to leave with one comment from Patrick Healy. He's the deputy opinion editor of the New York Times. And he said the following in an accompanying piece. He argues, Larry's piece is not equating Trump with Hitler. It is
you're right. It's not equating him. He's comparing.
About seeing people for who they really are and not losing sight of that. David is arguing that during a single dinner or a private meeting, anyone can be human, and it means nothing in the end about what that person is capable of. But I would argue that based on what I've heard Bill Maher say about the dinner, he's not arguing that, Donald Trump is actually a stand-up guy in reality, and that, that one dinner has totally changed his mind about who Trump is as a person. But he did disclose a really interesting dynamic here where Trump seems to be a completely different person when it's behind closed doors and he's having a one-on-one conversation with a political opponent. So, that.
I just want to check something real quick here. I don't think that this was a one-on-one with a political opponent. I don't think you get invited to the White House if you are a political opponent of Donald Trump. I think you get invited to the White House if you have a lot in common with Donald Trump. Or if he thinks that he can use you in some way.
That change in behavior, I think, is an interesting revelation to learn about Donald Trump. And
it's not new. Tons of people have talked about how he's very personable. You know who talked about Donald Trump being a very personable man? Jeffrey Epstein. This is not new information. Jeffrey Epstein is on the record talking about Donald Trump and about that in particular phenomenon. This is not new information. This is not like a revelation that's useful to anyone at all.
Let's keep it real. My biggest issue is critics of Trump's need to come up with new material. The Hitler thing is getting a little played out, to be honest with you. That's such a tired, parallel to draw. And yeah, he was comparing Trump to Hitler. I'm not stupid.
Yeah, he was. It's not subtle that the entire purpose of the piece is to compare him to Hitler. That's come on. God. Genuinely, it's just okay, you don't have to compare him to Hitler. Let's compare him to a different fascist. Francisco Franco. He's a real Francoist. Does that solve the problem for you? Is it merely because honestly, this criticism of it being played out, to me, it comes across like you're complaining about the fact that this comparison is both accurate and resonates with a lot of people, and you're just kind of tired of that. Like, it's the comparison is being made because he does the things a fascist does. And the most readily recognizable fascist to an American audience is Hitler. You know, like that's deeply embedded in our culture. And so, like, yeah, it's a comparison that's gonna be made. And it's gonna be made with the most readily available point of comparison. Kind of again, how like in our culture, a comparison between apples and oranges is common, but not apples and mangoes, for example. Not really a comparable thing as embedded, despite the fact that the comparison would still be relatively on point. You go for the closest point of comparison.
Like if you read the piece, that's clearly what he's doing here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, genuinely, you don't need to read the piece. You can just read the headline and understand exactly what he's trying to do. Like it's not subtle satire.
Even if it's an analogy to Hitler.
Yes.
That is why it's called My Dinner with Adolf. Yeah.
And he's less criticizing Trump than he is criticizing Bill Maher for talking to Hitler, the equivalent of Hitler. But nevertheless, it is a Hitler reference. There's no question about that. So, I mean, Larry David's a super smart guy, so don't insult our intelligence. And don't be patronizing. If you're gonna say something, say it.
He did. He did say it. How else are you gonna take that piece? It's not patronizing. He's a comedian. He made his comparison with comedy. I fucking can't with these people. This is not rocket science. God damn.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so, look, I just think that they're on the wrong track. And the thing that I keep going back to is, while they think they're on the moral high ground, folks like Larry David, oh, they're all Hitler, don't talk to Hitler, etc. I think that they're being deeply counterproductive, because by not talking, by not trying to influence people, by not getting involved in the conversation, you're letting in his analogy, you're letting the brown shirts, the SS, the Gestapo run wild with no opposition.
Yeah, like really when we look back at history, if only more nice people had talked to Hitler, he wouldn't have done that whole Holocaust thing. If you just sweet talked him enough, if you just complimented his art, had some nice dinners, maybe shared some hot cocoa by like a bonfire up at like the Eagle's Nest or something, maybe it all would have happened differently. It would have de-radicalized him. You could have talked him down, really. Yeah, if only more people had been nicer to Hitler about his paintings, none of this would have happened. Like, genuinely, are you that brain dead? Like, genuinely, like if you'd just been nicer to Mussolini, he wouldn't have had to make the trains run on time. Really? If you were, the target of violence under Francisco Franco, if you just sweet talked the people who were blackbagging you into getting an audience with Francisco Franco and just told him how handsome he was and how big his dick was, he might have let you go. Just something really makes you think. These people are clowns.
How does that help? At least Bill Maher went in there to try to help and you're trying to push him in the right direction. I don't see Larry David doing that. So, he's perfectly clever, but Larry, show me how you helped, because now for the first time I see how Bill has helped.
I'm just going to throw this out there, but one of the most historically effective ways of undermining the power of would-be dictators and authoritarians and fascists is to make fun of them. There's a reason why dictators, authoritarians, and fascists don't like that, and it's because one of the number one things they are interested in is projecting an image of power. And nothing undermines that image, that PR construct of power, more than pointing at them and laughing. It makes them feel small and weak, and they can't have that. So Larry David here is actually doing a much more courageous and much more interesting and much more effective method of influencing the Trump administration, and indeed people beyond the Trump administration, by undercutting its very basis of power and support. If more people did what Larry David had the guts to do, we would not be here. More people need to point at this administration and laugh. It's almost a patriotic imperative at this point. But go on, Jenk. Tell us about how Bill saying, hey, you know what? The Iran nuclear deal was pretty good. Actually helped us in this particular moment when the Iran nuclear deal is currently dead. That deal is not on the table anymore. Trump killed it during his first term.
So I score 1 for Bill Maher and because normally I love Larry David and I take Larry David over Bill Maher on almost any other issue. But on this, no, sorry, Larry. I think you're definitely wrong and you're being counterproductive, and let the brother try to do some good in the world.
Every time you ring the bell below.
What spineless cowards this network has turned into. It's really something. Like, I don't know. Like, we've got college students being disappeared for writing op-eds. And but no, the brave one is someone who goes to a dinner with Trump and sucks his dick the entire time. That's true bravery. Braver than any Marine. Fuck, man. Jesus Christ, why do they keep ceding so much ground to the right? Because they fundamentally just have stopped believing in anything. You know? It's sad to see, but like, that's the long and short of it. Who even is their audience anymore? Conservatives, centrists, people who still like John Idarola. My bad. Anyway, what a disappointing trash fire these people have become. And I don't know, I'm going to continue to call out their conservative takes as they happen. And they're happening more and more frequently, so they're just going into the rotation these days.
Riverboat deck is going to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Riverboat.